Welcome to the AmericanaMusic.com podcast with your host, Sarah Popejoy.
Today on AmericanaMusic.com, we welcome country singer-songwriter Grayson Jenkins, whose work has been featured in several online music magazines, including American Songwriter. With 250,000 miles logged touring, his songs tell stories that are time-honored. Amazing lyricist and singer-songwriter, we're excited to welcome Grayson Jenkins to the show. Welcome, Grayson.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Grayson, can you talk a little bit about where you're from?
I'm from Greenville, Kentucky, which is in the western part of the state, and it's in Muhlenberg County, which is famous for several different reasons. Musically, John Prine's Paradise, obviously, has been a conversation starter for me for years, but also the Everly Brothers are from Muhlenberg County, and then Merle Travis. There's a lot of cool music history. All that to say, I didn't really have much interest or exposure to those things growing up. A little bit, I would see stuff around, but I grew up on a small farm. We raised goats, horses, chickens, and it was kind of a small hobby farm that kept us pretty busy. Grew up in a small town, was raised there until I was 18 before I moved up to Lexington, Kentucky to go to college and start my career.
I saw the Central City statues of the Everly Brothers and John Prine. I was looking up that area.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. When you were growing up, were you aware of the song John Prine's Paradise, or was it kind of like later on you discovered that?
I was aware of it for sure. It was like the thing where
around town.
Yeah, any given day at school, some teacher or something would sing it. If you traveled somewhere and it was anybody over the age of 50, they would mention it. And then when I started getting into music was kind of right before John Prine's end of life renaissance. A lot of my friends that were playing music too were really into John Prine. And so we would play his songs late at night, these festival jams and house party jams and stuff. And just really fell in love with his music then and definitely leaned into more of his relation to where I'm from. His music means a lot to me for that reason, but his music means a lot to me for several other reasons too. And just his writing and seemingly his take on life is just a comforting thing for me. And so it's really cool to have that early introduction that was kind of blissfully unaware, and then later in life finding it in a time and a moment that it had maybe a bigger impact than it would have when I was younger.
Who were some of your other influences and musical heroes growing up?
Like a lot of people growing up in the 90s country radio was just ever present. So it's a lot of those people. I grew up listening to the Tim McGraws, George Straits, all of Toby Keith, all that stuff was on the radio all the time. Other than that, my mom was into 70s rock. So the Eagles were a big influence, especially early on in my music, kind of that country folk. She was also into Keith Whitley, she was my introduction into that, his music, which is super important to me, Don Williams. And then my dad was more into Merle Haggard, Waylon Jennings, that kind of stuff. And then randomly, when I was in late elementary school, early middle school, I kind of fell in love and was infatuated with Johnny Cash. Would go sing karaoke with my mom at this little restaurant, and I would sing Johnny Cash songs and just was infatuated with his whole presence and aura.
Very cool, yeah. Waylon and all those guys, Merle Haggard, they were at my house too growing up, along with a bunch of that other stuff you listed as well. Your approach to songwriting, I've noticed a lot of it, I'm sure, has a lot to do with some of your musical influences. I would describe it as very honest and to the bone. Can you talk a little bit about how the process of songwriting starts for you and what you look for in telling of a story through your songs?
I think it's changed a lot over time. Obviously, I've been writing songs for 10 years plus now. When I first started writing, it was therapeutic, and it still is, but it was very much like, I'm hurting. I want to describe this situation so that I feel better, is kind of looking back what it was. And gradually over time, I've started to just latch on to things that I find interesting. So like a turn of phrase or a random conversation with a stranger or a friend or something somebody else says or something I've experienced in my travels. It's usually something that just feels, it's like if this, right in the middle is life, I want to find the things that are kind of just outside of that a little bit to shed a light on. Additionally, I like to think of songwriting as a way to take a single moment and put the microscope on it and just kind of explode that and those feelings and really think about, I think somebody like Jason Isbell is somebody that I look up to in that way. And he can take this minute kind of situation in an experience and just explode the imagery to where you feel so viscerally those experiences. That said, that's kind of what I'm working towards. And so for me, it's telling stories, but I'm glad you mentioned simplicity because that's something that I've tried to fight off in the past of being more ethereal and more experimental. But I think at my core, I feel most passionate whenever I am being honest and to the point, saying things in a way that my dad or grandfather or grandmother or these people in the community that I grew up in would say things. Just kind of to the point, but with a little bit of character, a half grin or a wink, or I love those little idioms and things like that say something, but they say it kind of in a unique so that's been my goal, and that's kind of what I'm working towards.
You have 2 songs co-written by Nashville hitmaker Pat McLaughlin, who wrote with John Prine quite a bit. It's interesting because we interviewed Sierra Hull on this podcast recently, and that was one thing she had mentioned, writing a song with him. What was it like writing with someone who was known to write with one of your heroes?
It was very intimidating. We were supposed to write at his house that day. The connection was made through a friend of mine and one of probably my longest standing co-writer. I don't do it a ton, but he does. Ryan Allen, he's from Kentucky and played in my band for a while, and we've written songs over the years. But he had a session with Pat and let me come in, and we're supposed to go to Pat's house, and he ended up coming to my house, which was a very not even modest little shanty in East Nashville where I was living at the time. So Pat rolls up, this guy that's written not only the John Prine songs, but like I'm a big fan of Bahamas, and he's written songs with Afy, and there's that, and then like he's written country hits too. But anyway, it was very intimidating having him come to my house, but it was like watching a masterclass. It was a masterclass on building a song, building the story, just his combining that with his musical prowess. I think that oftentimes songwriters get thinking of as lyricists so much, and that's how I've viewed myself, but he was really stretching things musically too, and just how the song is built and the arrangement and how that pairs up with the lyrics. It was a special experience. Yeah, I hope to write with him again sometime, but yeah, one of those moments and one of those days of living in Nashville and being like, man, this is validating in a way that these songs, not just the people, but the actual songs that I've looked up to, I'm getting to sit in a room and write with somebody that made those super special.
Yeah, I bet it was. Yeah. Very cool.
And he's hilarious. He's a super funny guy. So
well, that's good. That probably helped break things up a little bit too. Yeah. So I also noticed the album was recorded at Fellowship Hall Sound in Little Rock, Arkansas. How did you come about choosing that studio?
That was all through Tony Bradshaw, who co-produced it. He's recorded a couple records there. That was all his idea, and the engineer, Jason, the space, and then the backing band for that session was kind of his brainchild, and I loved it. Other than it was early August and it was hot as hell. And the AC was being problematic. But other than that, it was a really wonderful experience.
That's just a stone's throw away from Tulsa.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's where all the backing band is from.
I noticed that. Jesse Aycock and Patty Ryan and Aaron from Wildorado.
Yeah, they're monsters. It was really fun working with them down there, and super efficient, but also just true artists, kind of all in their own right. The ideas I had for the songs coming in, some of them totally changed for the better. That's because of their kind of expertise.
It's always cool, too, when musicians will put their spin or something you never would have even thought for a particular song and then really kind of bring it to life. So besides being hot, what was it like recording there? I'm sure you've recorded other studios and stuff.
It was really cool for me just in terms of, I think it was the first time I'd really worked with an entirely new group of people. It was the first time I'd met any of those bandmates other than Pony, and then first time meeting Jason. So I think that for me, that's a good experience of feeling out of my comfort zone a little bit and maybe being, I love recording with my touring band and cutting songs with them, but sometimes it's nice to have fresh ears and perspectives on things, but also it helps me, kind of shakes my cage a little bit. I think feeling unsettled can lead to good art. The feeling that I got from going down there was I was nervous going in, recording with these guys who have credits much greater, than mine in terms of exposure and really wanting to do well. And so it was a really wonderful experience. Again, they kind of shifted the songs from where I thought. And I think over the years I've learned and hopefully grown into a space where I've realized the value in people's individuality, as opposed to thinking about this is the bass player. It's like, no, this is Aaron and this is how he plays bass and this is how he's going to meet this song. song, and this is not a drummer, it's Patty the drummer, and this is his style, and this is where he excels, and let's place that in this song, as opposed to being so rigid and thinking I want drums that sound like this song. Well, it's like, this is not that song, this is a new song, and we're in the room together and playing to that room, playing to those people, I guess is what I'm dancing around trying to say, is just like really meeting each other in that space and just seeing what happens, whether it's good after that or not, but in the moment you can feel it, and I think we were feeling it in that session.
Yeah, I've always thought that when you put a group of musicians together, like you said, instead of looking for a drummer that sounds like this song or whatever, knowing that this particular drummer, this is their style. And I think the more freedom people who are really versed in recording, you give them a lot of times, and the more play they have to do what they do best, puts together an amazing album.
Exactly. Yeah. You basically encapsulated my thoughts for my next record to brainstorm on. And I'm like, that's all I want to do is just hire the people that I like their stuff and let them do their thing. You know what I mean? As opposed to putting these tight parameters around anything.
Your song, Taxes and Time, it's the first song I heard of yours that made me stop and go, who is this guy? It's an acoustic song with a dobro and fiddle in it, and it has a very reminiscent quality, I would say, that I really like about it. The hook of the song, two things you can count on, taxes and time, with the rhyming line that comes before it, in the mirror I see that old dad of mine. It's a really great song. Can you talk a little bit about writing that song?
Yeah, first, thank you. Yeah, that song, I wrote it late in 2020. It was one of the first times I'd left home during the pandemic. I was home more during that time than I'd been in probably 5 years. Was able to grow a garden, was able to get in a routine, more or less, something I'd not had in many years. So I left home, shook that routine up, and I was sleeping on an air mattress, and I woke up in the kind of the middle of the night at like 5 a.m., middle of the night for a musician, but normal waking time for some people. Woke up, air mattress was flat, and I was thinking about my grandfather and a very specific memory of going to my cousin's birthday party in Tennessee. You know, the birthday party's over, and it was like, all right, well, we've got to get back home because Papa only sleeps in his bed. And it was like, you know, just at that age where he only traveled within a certain area because he was set in his ways.
Oh, okay.
And I like my home comforts, and, you know, my dad is like that now in a lot of ways, and I'm like that. I'm getting more of a routine. And so that's what I started writing the song about, was just feeling kind of myself, distancing myself from the rambler, out running the roads all the time. Now I'm back to doing that just as much as before. But when I wrote the song, it was kind of this space where I was home and really feeling grounded and settled in who I was and being at home. And this all happened about the time I turned 30 too. And so it was like, you know, you're reaching a new decade and you're thinking about what you want the future to look like. You're thinking about the past 10 years, the past 30 years, how to move forward from that. I think the thing I take away from it, and the hook of the song is, you can count on taxes, you can count on time, but especially with time, you get to choose how you grow with time. Not to be too cheesy, but you can grow with grace or you can fight it off. I get two choices. I can either lean into it or I can really combat it. To me, what I've seen play out in real life is combating it is more problematic than just leaning into it and embracing it. So that's kind of what it ended up being about. And it's been something that I played live for a long time before I released it. And so it feels nice to have a version out now.
Yeah, it's a really great song. Your song, Good Times Go, featuring Pony Bradshaw. And it has a great opening line to the song. Railroad is now just a souvenir of a boom that won't ever be back. I love that. It transports you right to that town. Can you talk a little bit about that song?
Yeah, that one was most of 2019. Right before the pandemic, I was living in an apartment in Ravenna, Kentucky, which is in Estill County. It's a little mountain town. And Ravenna, in its heyday, was a railroad town. And so when I would go to the Dollar General to get snacks or something or whatever, provisions, there wasn't a proper grocery store super close. You drive right past, you know, these old downtown buildings and the tracks. You could kind of see this town of a bygone era. And there's this Dollar General that's super out of place kind of thing. And I see a lot of towns like that. You know, I drive through the middle of the country all the time, river towns, industrial towns that some have started to be repurposed and kind of, you see their downtowns revitalized. Like my hometown of Greenville is kind of like that. They've started to revitalize that, but others are still pretty run down. So that's what the song was written about. It was like these rural areas and the people that lived there, and not the things you would hear about in history class, but like the second verse is probably my favorite moment in that song, of the Mary Ann and her green eyes and the store that she bought with her husband with his army pay.
Yeah.
He passes away, the store runs out of business, and she's got to leave town and closing up shop. Those people within those places was kind of what the song ended up leading towards.
The video, did you record it at that same place or?
No, that's what I was going to say. It's in Cairo, Illinois.
Okay.
It's pronounced Cairo and it's spelled like Cairo. And it's like the southernmost town in Illinois. It sits right on the Mississippi River, right where the Mississippi and Ohio meet, I believe.
Oh.
You should look it up. It's a really strange town. I'd heard about it a lot growing up, but had never been there. And then on a trip from out west this past fall, my fiance and I stopped through there and shot some music video footage that my friend then put together. Yeah, it was like they used to have a big opera house there. They had a daily train that ran from city to city. And so you think about, you drive through these places now and you're like, oh, this is a rundown little town. But 60 years ago, it was a booming metropolis by a lot of standards. And I think we just forget that so quickly, especially looking ahead. It's like the places that are premier places now, depending on industry, economy, outside forces, could totally change. And 40 years from now, 50 years from now, it could be a very different looking place.
Yeah, it was a really neat video. I liked how you were in front of that. I guess it was the opera house, but it looked like just a theater was all I knew.
Yeah.
And then there was this metal car with this overgrowth that you were next to, and it was just all the different imagery within the town. I really liked that you kind of showed all these different parts of it that just kind of really drew you into knowing that this isn't normal. This town is, It
was strange. Yeah, we spent the night there at a bed and breakfast, which was the first time I'd ever stayed at an actual bed and breakfast. And it was just a strange experience. It was just, I've driven through those areas a lot, but first time I'd ever really kind of spent some time. Such a big country that I feel fortunate to get to see some of those little pockets that a lot of people don't.
That's where a lot of the stories are, in those little pockets, right?
Absolutely.
There's a town here in Oklahoma called Pitcher. 50% of the lead from World War I and World War II that went to the bullets in World War I and World War II were from this small little town where it was mining town. Now, when you drive through it, it looks like the apocalypse or something. You'll see churches with overgrowth and little houses with overgrowth. It's just buildings that are partly destroyed because after they made everybody leave because there was too much lead in the water. And then either an F3 or F4 tornado came through. It demolished what was left. So the people who were there, who were trying to hang on, they finally left. It was like this huge old act of God that came through. It used to be a flourishing, mining town. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's called Pitcher.
Yeah. Pitcher, Oklahoma.
Wow, yeah.
It's a northeast corner of Oklahoma.
Several forces coming in to push people out.
Your song, Nobody's Stopping You Anyhow. Wait, I'm going to back up before we start talking about that. You said you toured with Pony Bradshaw quite a bit. Did I read that?
Yes. Yeah.
How long have you guys known each other and how long have you been touring with him?
I met Pony in fall of 2022 and played a couple shows together. And then 2023, we did about 50 dates together. And then 2024 did maybe 10 or 15. So a couple years.
Very cool. Nobody's Stopping You Anyhow, featuring Britt Taylor. It's the latest single release at the time of this recording. My favorite line from the song is, "Words are like a freight train rolling down a track. Once you send them down the line, you can't get them back." Talk a little bit about that song.
That song was written by Ryan Allen and Pat McLaughlin, who co-wrote Grand Slam with me. So Ryan, a longtime friend, Pat, we've already spoken a lot about him, a great writer. But the story behind that song for me is that Ryan sent me the song idea, and I was touring, driving around, and I listened to it and I liked it a lot. And he, wanted me to collaborate with him on it. And I was way too slow getting back. It was like a couple months past. And then he sent me the version that he and Pat wrote. And I was like, well, holy shit, this is way better than I could have ever hoped to do. But the demo he sent me was just a voice memo of Pat singing it and Ryan harmonizing and playing with him. And it just like gave me chill bumps listening to it. So I asked him kind of then, I was like, man, I want to cut that song one day if you'll let me. And so he and Pat were both agreeable. It's such a beautiful song that, yeah, definitely unique for me to take somebody else's song again that had never been recorded. That's not something I do. It's not like the Nashville thing is. So as a singer-songwriter, to step out and, cut somebody's song that you have no credit on is a different thing, but super happy with it. And Britt, her vocal is one that I've always been drawn towards. She just has a gorgeous voice. And so I was thankful she popped by to sing on that one.
Yeah, you did a great job on that song. I mean, it sounds at home with you. It doesn't sound, it was written by somebody else. It sounds really great. Yeah, I saw the music video too. Right?
Yeah, thanks.
What do you think makes a great song?
Well, as I started saying that, I was like, this is going to be like I'm patting my own back. But you mentioned with Good Times Go, the railroad is now just a souvenir. I love opening lines that just suck you into this vortex of like, I'm in this world now. So those types of things, for me, it's like imagery and relatability are kind of what I'm looking for. And relatability in the sense that you read a line or you hear a line or a verse and 10 different people have 10 different things that they relate to it. Those are like special songs, like Jason Isbell's Flagship. There's a few too many years on this hotel is the opening line. And well, everybody can pretty much think of a hotel that's maybe past its heyday that you've been in, especially I think of a hotel bar, a place that used to be fancy, but maybe no longer is. Those types of things. As soon as I hear that opening line, I'm in that space. And each verse and each line after that just builds on that. And it's all these cowboy boots for $7 more. So you're thinking about this old pair of cowboy boots you've packed around that you want to get shined up. That's just one example. I think Prime does that super well of just like it can be the most random ass things that he makes super relatable. And so that's what it is for me. I think it's imagery, relatability. And then as I've gotten more into music and less of just considering myself a lyricist, as I've gotten into music, it's, obviously melody. And for me, I like a good hook that is memorable, which is, you mentioned simplicity. That's something I strive for is like, I want a lyrical hook, but also like a musical hook that people can get behind and come back to. And those are the typical things that I'm looking for in songs too, that I just like to listen to.
I think that is one really underestimated quality of a song that I find very important is the opening line, the thing that draws people in. One of my favorite artists who I feel like does that real well is Amy Mann. And I don't know if you've heard her before or not. She is really great at that first opening line, just really, catching you and pulling you in. One of my favorite opening lines of hers is, "Now that I've met you, would you object to never seeing each other again?" With imagery and also with piquing people's interest. But yeah, so that Good Times Go had a great opening line to it. Pulled you right in. I loved it.
Thanks. I'll have to check out Amy. That the intrigue has struck me.
Country Parables releases July 25th. I want to make sure everybody knows the date. So this will probably come out a little closer to that. What's your goal for this album? Or what are you going to set out touring? You have a good big tour schedule coming out? Or what's on the books for you next?
Yeah, I've got some dates booked for the fall and then some others that I'm working on an album release tour. I just wrapped up a spring tour that was great. Got to do a West Coast run with Vincent Neil Emerson and did some like more regional and hometown Kentucky headline shows. And the longer I've been in it, I'm just really trying to be selective in the things that I want to do in the sense that I used to go out and I would take the door deal and grind it out. And anymore, I'm just trying to do the things that really feel valuable in terms of places where people want to see us, shows that feel fulfilling. My goal with this record is to just feel a little more at home in my sound and not be so caught up in seeking validation from a label, from a booking agency, from a management agency. I've been around long enough to have those conversations, and it's often left me feeling empty and not like myself of where I'm trying to seek validation from those sources. It's just about, this is me, this is a sound I believe in, these are songs I believe in, I want to get them out there, I want to go play the places for the people and with the people that I love and that respond to it, as opposed to, I think with other records I've put out and other initiatives I've had, it's been like, well, I want to do this so that it looks good for this agency and so that maybe I can get on this agency, or I want to do this because it looks good pitching to this label. And those things are great and there are good people that work those places, but for me, I think I just want to put my blinders on a little bit and focus on my music and my experience and the community that surrounds that, the other artists, the fans, the friends, the bandmates, and focus on that world as opposed to focusing on all the things I can't control. So that's the goal with this record, is to just be me.
So, and it sounds like you're saying the connectivity to me is what I'm hearing.
Community. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love that. That is great. Well, Grayson, I just want to thank you so much for joining the podcast today. Everybody go out and check out Country Parables. It'll be out July 25th. Go find it on your favorite listening platform. This is a great album. Some really great writing, great production too. So thank you so much for joining us, Grayson.
I really appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks for your kind words and for digging into the songs.
Sony Music wanted us to tell you about Zach John King and Baker Blankenship and their latest single that dropped Friday, Life Behind Bars. They are two artists we've previously interviewed on this show, and this song is really cool. It's kind of a play on words. Life Behind Bars by Zach John King and Baker Blankenship. Check it out. Thank you so much for listening to AmericanaMusic.com podcast. Be sure to go to AmericanaMusic.com and find playlists of the Americana artists we've interviewed here. Also, be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast platform.